1988, a year where we quickly realized that we need to be careful what we wish for. In video games, this year is going to stick out as one of those years where there's more good games than you can count. And finally in music, we got one of the biggest songs that ever became one of the biggest troll songs of all time. Let's look at 1988. Every year we make it through, more and more memories are locked into place in our minds. Certain video games or movies or even a simple chorus from a song you knew and loved can mean so much. Let's take a moment and talk about what makes each year from our past so special. On today's episode, the year is Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. We're starting out with a movie that was directed by Tim Burton, which was a wild, wild visual experience.
What I mean is, can you be scary? Oh, I know you're asking me. Can I be scary?
If you just look back and watch some scenes from Beetlejuice, you're gonna see some of the wildest looking creations you've ever seen. As I mentioned, this movie was directed by Tim Burton, which is obvious. This is total Tim Burton right here. This is classic Tim Burton. Upon watching it again and kind of even watching some clips on YouTube, something that kept coming into my mind was another movie which was also directed by Tim Burton, was Pee-wee's Big Adventure. This movie kind of reminds me as if you took all the nightmare scenes from Pee-wee's Big Adventures, you know, Pee-wee's nightmares that he had during the movie. It seems like this is almost just one big continuation of all those nightmares put together, really in that style, really especially with the artistic flavor and the artistic flair that Tim Burton put on this movie.
Thank you. Woo! That is why I won't do 2 shows a night anymore, babe. I won't do. Well,
I wish I were big. You need to be careful if you're standing in front of a Zoltar machine while making this wish. One of the best Tom Hanks movies of all time is a movie called Big.
I wish I were big.
When we were all kids, I just remember saying to myself all the time, I wish I was out of high school. I wish I was out of junior high. I wish I was an adult. I wish I could do adult things. And this movie takes that concept of a young man wishing, I wish I were big, and then waking up and getting his wish. I love so many scenes in this movie. Seeing Tom Hanks play such a good part in this role. It's so interesting to watch all the adults in this film kind of look at Tom Hanks like, why is this guy being so silly? Why is he so goofy? But then in return, you get that heartfelt feel of them kind of being a youth at heart, so to say. One of the classic scenes is Tom Hanks and one of his friends now at this time in the movie playing a song together on a giant piano. It is such a standout. One of my favorite scenes from the movie is when Tom Hanks' best friend sees Tom Hanks for the first time and is like, who are you? He freaks out, he tries to run away, and then Tom Hanks pulls out their classic, their staple, their signature handshake, which I've always tried to master and I always mess up when I try to say it out loud. Shimmy Shimmy Cocoa Puff is all I really remember.
I meant it, I said it, I stole my mama's credit, I'm cool, I'm hot, I'd suck you in the stomach 3 more times.
Josh?
When it comes to dolls come to life that become real or become scary or become possessed, I think of 2 movies that really stick out, and that's Talkie Tina from The Twilight Zone, and then there's Chucky from Child's Play. Child's Play is such a standout movie because I feel like, at least for my generation, you know, The Twilight Zone, Talkie Tina was a little before that. But as far as my generation, I feel like this movie really sticks out as to what made a lot of people genuinely scared of dolls. I know myself growing up, even at my friend Andy's house, who's been on the show, I remember staying at his parents' house one time and they put me kind of in this bonus room and there was dolls everywhere. And all I could think of was Chucky. And it was frightening because these images of Chucky, he was such a cute little character, but when he came to life, when he got his realism, it wasn't just like he was like going from cute to like, oh, I'm real and I'm gonna kill you, kind of like Talkie Tina. And Talkie Tina in The Twilight Zone, the character was very still lifeless and dead.
So you have feelings?
Doesn't everything?
Then I can hurt you.
Not really, but I could hurt you.
but Chucky became full-on real, full-on scary, and from 0 to 60 because he was angry, upset, and saying some vile things that I definitely won't be playing a clip for you guys of that because he said some bad things. But other than that, Child's Play has become a monumental staple in the world of horror.
You know, I thought something like this might happen. That's why I prepared for it.
What are you talking about?
Your own personal mojo, Doc.
Yippee-ki-yay, in 1988, we got Die Hard. Die Hard is such a cool Bruce Willis movie. In my opinion, possibly the best Bruce Willis movie. Might put it up there with The Sixth Sense. Those are two of my favorites with Bruce Willis. But this movie was just tough as nails, balls to the wall, anything goes, crazy action. And in my opinion, action that I really feel like I miss these days. I feel like a lot of certain culture doesn't allow this type of movie anymore to be made, but that's a whole different story and a whole different thought process. With that, one of the biggest arguments comes to mind when you think of Die Hard, and that's, is this a hardcore action movie? Or is it a Christmas movie? I myself have never found it to be a Christmas movie. I know it is Christmas based, but I myself consider it a more crazy action movie. And one of my favorite things about the movie, one of the biggest standouts for me, well, we got someone special in the movie. We got Carl Winslow. I am a huge, monumental fan of Christmas movies. I absolutely adore them. And in 1988, we got one that I really enjoy, and that's Scrooged. It's really intriguing with Christmas movies because there's so many out there, but a lot of times we retell the same story over and over, which I actually like and I really think it's cool. And one storyline that I always love is the Christmas Carol. I always love seeing what other companies bring as far as the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. They all bring to us different forms and styles of ghosts, and I find it really interesting to see what they're gonna bring. As expected, Bill Murray does nothing but a stellar job in this role, but I think where the movie really takes precedent and stands above a lot of other Christmas Carol movies is the end speech. Bill Murray goes off in the streets, kind of motivational speeching everybody to death about how we can change and how we can be better and how you can make better decisions and you can change your heart. But what's interesting about this scene is that you can tell Bill Murray himself, out of character, is almost having some sort of epiphany in real life about changing and being a better person. Now, I'm not going to speak to his personal life after the movie, if any of this went forward and kept going, of the way and style he was choosing to live in this movie, but I will say for this movie, you could see it in his eyes, even in his mouth mannerisms and his movements. He was definitely feeling the role, and something was changing inside of him and the character.
You'll want it every day of your life, and it can happen to you. I believe in it now. I believe it's gonna happen to me now. I'm ready for it.
Blaster Master for the NES is one of those games that isn't talked about near as much as the big Nintendo IP games, but it's one of those games where when you talk to somebody who really dove in the Nintendo in their childhood or in their youth or was big into Nintendo, Blaster Master is a game that usually gets brought up, and rightfully so. Blaster Master takes you on a silly adventure finding your frog and retrieving that frog. But it's interesting because so many people mock the story for this video game. I've heard it mocked time and time again. You're just chasing your frog. It's so silly. It's so stupid. Go through all this trouble for just a frog. But you can say that all you want, but with one of the weakest stories inside of a Nintendo game, we're also given one of the best, most vast gameplay experiences you could ask for in a Nintendo game. The thing is, yes, some other games might bring you better stories, but sometimes you get much more linear and basic and even kind of boring gameplay. But when it comes to Blaster Master, there's exploring, there's top-down views, there's changes, there's power-ups, there's different characters as far as Sophia and Jason, and just all around different types of exploring that'll really put you on a big epic quest, especially for being on an 8-bit console. Growing up my whole life being a skateboarder, I've always loved Skate or Die. Skate or Die is sometimes talked down upon by people for the way it controls or the gameplay, but this game is one of those cases that I've talked about before where when that's all you had as a kid, that's all you played and you didn't know any different. Even though I was a skateboarder and I still am, I never played the video game and thought to myself, hey, this doesn't control anything like it should in real life given the way physics works in real life. No, I knew the controls were kind of backward and the pumping on the half pipe was kind of weird and the jousting mechanisms and mechanics seemed a little weird, but all in all, I always enjoyed it. Those are some of my favorite experiences in a video game. Skater Die is so cool because yes, it is a skateboarding game, but it's not telling you just go left to right and kind of ollie over some stuff and dodge some stuff. No, it's telling you, here's this style of game, here's this style of game, there's a downhill jam, there's a joust, there's all different things you can do. Heck, there's a staple store you can go to where we've all talked about where the character looks way too much like Rodney Dangerfield, and there's just so much to do in the game and so much fun to have. I absolutely love Skater Die. Before I go on, let me say there are a ton of amazing video games that have a really strong presence in my life in 1988. So with that said, I'm going to name off a few before I go on to tell you more of the ones that really stood out in my life. We technically had Mario Bros. 2 and 3. We had Wonder Boy 3. Ninja Spirit, Mega Man 2, Space Harrier 2, The Amazing Splatterhouse, the Animal Morphing Altered Beast, the no-jumping, arm-swinging Bionic Commando, and the ever so bad Bad Dudes vs. Dragon Ninja. Debatably by many people the greatest ninja-based video game of all time, and that's Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden is one of those ninja games that just has those perfect physics and has those perfect mechanics when it comes to the way it feels being an actual ninja. I know when it comes to games like Shinobi, not some of the later ones, but on the early ones, even the Sega Master System, a lot of people say you're really stiff, it feels really hard and clunky, but when it comes to Ninja Gaiden, your swoop of your sword, it feels like there's physics and movement and animation in it. It has a different feel, it has a different flair of going fast, your flips, everything feels like what as a kid you want it to feel like as a ninja. The only drawback I really see people having with this game is its difficulty, but again, NES hard was a thing, and NES kid will tell you that's just part of it. And yeah, there's the bounce back, and I'd say for me that's the only real complaint I have with the video game. But otherwise, Ninja Gaiden, or Ninja Gaiden, whatever you want to say, what a game. When thinking back on the NES and racing games, I think I would have to say RC Pro-Am was our most played inside of our household. I think this was the first time for me I ever felt like in a racing game that I had to do any sort of upgrades to my car where I actually was trying to get upgrades. I played games previously to this where I know I could upgrade my car and do certain tune-ups, but I never really cared. But in RC Pro-Am, I feel like I genuinely was having so much fun collecting the different letters on the ground and the different objects that would allow me to get more boost or acceleration or better turning or better wheels. So I found myself having fun with it. And it was one of those games where my brothers and I would always pass back the controllers to each other back and forth, back and forth. And I definitely have to say some of the music in that game is so basic, so simple. It's pretty much some intro music, but we love the sound effects and we love some of the shooting mechanics in the game as well. Early Twisted Metal? No, not really. I'm not entirely sure if this is an unpopular opinion or not, but Super C or Super Contra is probably my favorite Contra game on the NES. I don't know what it is about Super Contra that I like more about Contra, but I just do. And I feel like that didn't really come into play until later on in my life. As a younger kid, Contra was definitely the game I liked more, but as an adult playing them both back and forth and also playing, yes, Contra Force, Super Contra is by far my favorite. And if I had to try to pinpoint exactly why, and I don't know if this is true, but I feel like I have a little bit better control of my characters, almost like there's a teeny tiny bit less floatiness or maybe a little bit less bloating in the controllers. I don't know if that necessarily makes sense to anybody, but for me, playing Super Contra, it definitely just is a fact for the way I play. And I even a few years ago played it again for the first time after taking like maybe a 5-year gap of ever playing it, and had a pretty darn good no death run going for I'd say 3 or 4 levels.
go back to the middle spot as it goes to the right. No, no.
And going forward, of course, we've had so many great Contra games, but going forward, I would say Super Contra, Super C, is in my top 3 favorite Contra games of all time. Red Red Wine by UB40 is definitely one of the classic chill out relax songs. This song was actually first written and recorded by Neil Diamond in 1967. What's funny is that the band UB40 recorded this as a cover to the Tony Tribe 1969 reggae version, which reached number 46 in the UK charts, and at the time that's the only version the band knew. They didn't even know that Neil Diamond originally wrote and recorded the song. Got My Mind Set on You by George Harrison. George Harrison was the quiet Beatle, but man, George was such a beautiful guitar player, such a beautiful singer, such a beautiful songwriter. I absolutely think George Harrison is by far severely underrated when it comes to the Beatles, or even music in general. But Got My Mind Set on You is a fantastic song that he put out after the Beatles, and what a fun, catchy song. I would say this is probably the song that got Ricky and I both to get into more after the Beatles' George Harrison. We were always huge fans of the songs George Harrison wrote for the Beatles, but when it came to after the Beatles, I'd say songs like Dark Horse, What Is Life, Got My Mind Set on You, and Wah Wah were just some songs that really made me fall in love with George Harrison as a solo artist.
But it's gonna take money.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this has become the most troll song ever of all time, and that is Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. It's crazy because looking back on this song, there is no way in the world Rick could have predicted what this song was going to become. Besides the song being a great song, yes, with some cheesy dancing going on, the song is basically going down in history at this point for trolling people. And if you've never been rickrolled before or don't know what that means, basically it's like, hey, I'm going to show you some footage of Mega Man 2 right now, and you see about 2 seconds, and then it automatically just goes into some footage and you hear the drums kick in to go into Rick Astley's song, Never Gonna Give You Up. Something a little funny about this song, and I don't know if it was directly towards Rick Astley or not, but there was a point where someone said something. Donald Trump's wife, Melania, spoke at the 2016 Republican National Convention, and she said, he will never ever give you up, and he will never ever let you down.
He's the guy. He will never ever give up.
Never gonna give you up.
He will never ever let you down.
I mean, I'm not gonna say that she was quoting Rick Astley, but I'm gonna say she was quoting Rick Astley. Heaven is a Place on Earth by Belinda Carlisle. And I know I referenced my sister a few weeks ago, but I'm going to do so again and say this is one of those songs always heard playing in her room when walking by. I remember specifically on this song walking by her room and her door was open and I could see the music video playing for this song, and I remember thinking, this is a little cheesy. It was people basically holding balls that looked like the planet Earth, kind of like Heaven is a Place on Earth, and it just kind of seemed like a really silly pun. And for me to think that in the 80s when a lot of things were cheesy was saying a lot. And upon doing just a little bit of research for this, I found out the promotional music video for Heaven is a Place on Earth was directed by the noted American actress and director Diane Keaton. And also recently the song got a little bit of shine on an episode of Black Mirror called San Junipero? Junipero. I never know how to say that word. The song was on Black Mirror. Alright everybody, that was a look at the year 1988. What did you like most from the year? The movies, the music, or the video games? Let me know down in the comments below. And up next, 1989. Oh man, this is a goodie. This is right before we get into the 90s. Alright you guys, have a good one. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a good day.